Okay, good morning, folks. I think it's just 9 o'clock Verizon time, as we say, and it's the official morning start of the Board of Education meeting. Thank everybody for being here. If you could join us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In case everybody is watching us on TV, since there are so few people here. Very unusual. All right. Oh, could be. We have, I hope everybody has had an opportunity to review the minutes of the October 16 and 17 meetings of the board. And if so, and if the minutes are appropriate, could we have a motion to approve them or a motion to amend?
Approval of the minutes?
Thank you, Dr.
Second.
Wilson. Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Is there any discussion, changes, comments, additions? No. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, we're going to skip, I think, the resolution of recognition for a little bit. And we're going to move on to public comment. Emily?
Do not have anyone signed up for public comment this morning
I guess this,
in
you know,
advance.
what if they had a board meeting and nobody came? Is it still a board meeting? I don't know. Okay.
Parties.
Hmm?
We need to-
Yeah, no, we're going to do that now. As is our practice, once we get through the long list of those who have signed up, we ask if anybody who did not sign up who's in the audience would like to address the board. Now would be an appropriate time. And seeing nobody come forward, we will move past public comment. Okay. Consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda, that's items A through E, that anybody would like pulled off the consent agenda? Okay, if not, is there a motion to adopt and approve the items on the consent agenda? Thank you, Dr. Duran. Any second? Uh-oh. I'm not going to choose. You guys pick. All right, Dr. Paxton with the second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item F. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Gecker, members of the board, and Dr. Lane. It certainly is a pleasure for me to present this item to you, which is the final review of proposed revisions to the guidelines for uniform performance standards and evaluation criteria for teachers, principals, and superintendents. In accordance with state law, teacher, principal, and superintendent evaluations must be consistent with the Board of Education performance standards included in the guidelines. They must include student academic progress as a significant component, and they must include an overall summative rating. As you know, the Code of Virginia also requires the board to establish performance standards and evaluation criteria for teachers, principals, and superintendents. The Board of Education is beginning a process to review and make revisions to the guidelines. But prior to this broader review, revised guidelines are being presented today to you to address only the weighting of the performance standards for the evaluation of teachers, principals, and superintendents. The guidelines provide school divisions a model evaluation system that may be implemented as is or can be revised or refined to meet local teacher evaluation systems expectations. I would like to give background to briefly explain this change in the evaluation systems. In 2012, in response to federal reporting requirements pursuant to the State Fiscal Stabilization Fund and to meet Virginia's Elementary and Secondary Education Act Flexibility Plan, Virginia was required to ensure that student academic progress, which is Standard 7, account for 40% of the summative rating evaluation for teachers. As such, the Board of Education's current guidelines call for the first 6 standards to be weighted equally at 10%, and the 7th standard, student academic progress, to account for 40% of the summative evaluation. Since the federal requirement has been eliminated, weighting student academic progress at 40% is no longer mandated. As I indicated, the Code of Virginia requires that student academic progress be a significant component of the evaluation. The attached guidelines, and you have them for teachers, principals, and superintendents, propose the evaluation of student academic progress is met if Standard 7, student academic progress, is not the least weighted of the performance standards or less than 10%. However, it may be weighted equally as one of the multiple lowest weighted standards. The guidelines before you today recommend that standards 1 through 5 and standard 7 be weighted at 1.5 and standard 6 be weighted 1. The performance standards are aligned for teachers, principals, and superintendents. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends the board approve the revised guidelines for uniform performance standards and evaluation criteria for teachers, principals, and superintendents.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. Pitts? Yeah, please, Ms. Holton.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Pitts.
Good morning.
I see. So am I right in understanding that all the changes are on our, I'm looking at attachment A, the others, I understand, follow along, but
Yes,
attachment
ma'am.
A as to teachers, all the changes are on pages 70 to 73, standard 7, plus I see, well, standard 7 plus the sample teacher summative performance report.
Right. All of the revisions that are highlighted in yellow font, and all of those are all pertinent to and relative to the weighting. No other revisions except a couple of minor edits. For example, there was an April 15th notification date, which was changed to June 15th to comport with law. But other than that, all of the revisions are relative to the weighting of the standards.
And so I think they're all in that standard 7 section. at
Yes, ma'am.
Page 70 to
Yes,
73.
other than a couple
There's
of
an edit
edits.
at the beginning of the document.
Yes.
But it's just to explain what we're doing.
Okay.
Right.
So the reason I ask, I think this can go in the comments, and I'm sorry I didn't remember to flag this earlier, but just looking at the whole document, my last minute preparation, I see on the very initial page that it reflects when the standards were initially adopted in 2011, effective 12, and then revised 2015. When we do the final version of this, can we note that this revised as to standard 7 by the Board of Ed in 2019 or something to that effect, so that, God forbid, if none of us are around or remember when we finally get back to reevaluating the whole thing. I wouldn't want the public or anybody else to be confused as to whether or not we are now reaffirming all the rest of it. Because I for one, have not studied all the rest of it to make sure that it's all still accurate.
Sure. we
Even
can-
like even the summary of evidence, for instance, in some of the introductory sections is, not updated, for instance. So
Right.
I just want us to make that clear.
We can certainly memorialize in the introduction of all 3 documents the action of the board today to be very clear that the revisions are related to the weighting of the performance standards. Yes, be happy to do that.
Any other comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve this item? Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Second, Dr. Duran. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we will, I think, go backward on the agenda now
Thank you.
thank you very much, Patty, to the resolutions of recognition. Ms. Holton.
Good morning, colleagues, members of the public, and our special guests, Elizabeth Lodel and her husband, Jan, who we are just thrilled to have with us this morning. It is my honor to recognize Elizabeth Lodel, our beloved friend and former colleague, long-term friend to me, to the board, to educators all across the Commonwealth, and especially, most especially, to our students. It is my honor to recognize her today as she retired from the board this past June, having served honorably for many years, having been appointed by then Governor Terry McAuliffe. Elizabeth is recognized as a thoughtful leader who has passionately dedicated her talents to ensuring that our public schools and our young people excel. Having represented the board on ABTEL, Mrs. Lodel has worked to establish policies and standards that strengthen the preparation, recruitment, and retention of the best and brightest educators, including meaningful and ongoing professional development. Throughout her years of distinguished and dedicated service here, she has contributed to rigorous academic programs, has helped us improve the standards of quality. I know she'll be thrilled with what we have finalized since her exit, but that she contributed to in such a deep way over the years. Worked with us to deepen the standards of accreditation and helped us increase flexibility for school divisions. Also, during her tenure here, the board, with her intense involvement, developed the profiles of a Virginia graduate, just to describe the knowledge, skills, competencies, and experiences students should attain during their K-12 education to make them life ready. Elizabeth's legacy of support for the humanities and increased access to gifted learning programs has resulted in greater emphasis and collaboration in these subject areas. Throughout all her service here on the board and throughout her whole long, distinguished career as an educator, her focus has been on equity. Everything we talked about, textbooks, teachers, resources, that was the lens that she brought to the table and has helped us crystallize as a board as our focus. She likewise was focused throughout her career as an educator on the least of these and how we could make sure that everybody in our system had an opportunity for life success through education. Throughout her years of dedicated service to public education, she has counseled and worked directly with thousands of students, teachers, families to improve student achievement and prepare students for success in post-secondary education in the workplace. We thank Mrs. Lodel for her enthusiasm, candor, and collegiality to the board and extend our warmest wishes for her future endeavors. And I'm thrilled today to present this resolution of appreciation to you, Elizabeth, and thrilled to have your husband, Jan, here with us. You all may or may not know, and the public may or may not know, but Elizabeth and Jan are also active in so many other spheres, supporting the arts and their community and our Commonwealth in myriad ways. And we are very, very blessed to have her with us in education. And I'd like to invite you up.
Good morning. As a person of few words, you know that I would come prepared to say a few things, and I want to thank my good and longtime friend, Ann Holton, who I keep hearing as now president at George Mason University. They are pining for you to stay as long as possible. But today, it is so wonderful to see each of you. I have missed you and think about you and the wonderful work that you do. I want to celebrate the high privilege of being a member of the Virginia Board of Education. with such an amazing group as each of you. I appreciate your total commitment to the students, the teachers, and the staffs of our schools. I want you to also know, Dr. Lane, how much I have loved getting to know the staff of the Department of Education. This was something new in my life, and I have found this group to be an incredible group of educators who taught me so much about how much work is done behind the scenes to make things happen for our students in Virginia. I think you and they are the unsung heroes, as well as our very courageous people on the front lines, our teachers, our principals, our superintendents, our staff. To you, my former colleagues of the Board of Education, I want to thank you for your dedication, your preparation. I do not miss some of those envelopes that we got, your insights, especially the collaboration that we had and the good humor. You have consistently put the needs of our students first by championing, and I have a couple of things that I think we together have done. The whole focus on equity. Bravo to you, Dan, for helping to lead us with this. And really focusing on the underserved. Ann is right. Yes, I had the privilege of working with many gifted students. These were both students who were recognized for their giftedness and those who were unrecognized for their giftedness, because there are so many gifted students in our schools that we never really discover. I congratulate you for finally getting the standards of quality through for better working conditions and situations for learning and our staff. The focus on teachers, they are the key. And better incentives, better training, professional development. I salute this board for doing our own professional development. Keep doing those retreats and thinking about the bigger issues. I'm so thrilled that we have moved beyond, and I think there's still work to do in this area, on negative labels for our struggling schools and students, and the focus on celebrating their hard-won successes. Moving to better assessment schemes that are not all fill in the dots, but where students truly have to demonstrate what they have learned and what they know. I could go on and on, but I won't. You have accomplished so much, but so much remains to be accomplished, and I'm going to be watching you. I'm not sure I'll tune in every time, believe me, as fascinating as these meetings are. We have to continue the excellent work that our subject area specialists have done here for our students in science and math and the humanities. We have much to do, though, in teaching the truth about our heritage. And you know that this is one of my passions. This year, we celebrate the 400th anniversary of the landing at Jamestown and the planting of seeds for a mighty nation. But we also acknowledge that this is the same anniversary for the first ship of slaves and indentured servants We must teach the truth of both the positive and the negative events of our history and how they continue to impact us to this day in our Commonwealth, in our nation, in the world. We have to help all of our students. They are our future citizens and voters to learn and grow and develop the capacity to have difficult, uncomfortable conversations and to think independently, to truly become civically engaged as citizens. And I will continue to work on this. We're all lifelong learners. Jan and I just last week joined a pilgrimage from our church of 40 members, a civil rights pilgrimage to Birmingham and Montgomery. We learned so much, and I have been a history teacher. And I learned so much, and I thought I was very well informed. If you haven't done it, do it to see what Brian Stevenson has done with his Legacy Museum and his monument to peace, which is sometimes called the Lynching Monument. I would like to share a story with you. You know how much I love stories. This is a story that Brian Stevenson shared with our group last Monday when he met with us. One of his key proponents of how you do work, and this is so true in schools, is to get proximate, that you get close to, as a principal, the classroom, the kids, the teachers, the parents, the people involved. And in his 35 years of work in Alabama, that's what he's been doing. And as a part of the Legacy Museum, there are large jars of dirt taken from lynching sites, and there are walls filled with these. And a woman came to him and said she knew of a lynching site that hadn't been memorialized with the dirt. And she wanted to do so. She wanted one of the jars with the person's name on it and to personally go out and dig under the tree where she knew the lynching had happened. And he said, wonderful, congratulations. She said, but I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid. And he said she was a little African-American woman. And he said, you know, in this work, we must be brave and courageous. So he gave her her bottle and jar, and she went out. And she was kneeling, and she had her garden shovel, and she was shoveling dirt in. And she saw a white pickup truck start down the road and slow down near her. And she noticed a large white man in it, carefully watching her, and she kept filling her jar. The truck turned around and again slowly came back, watching her. And she said, well, I said to myself, if he asks what I'm doing, I'm going to say I'm getting dirt for my garden. And she kept shoveling. And again, that truck turned around and stopped. And this man came towards her and said, what are you doing? And she said, at that moment, I thought, it's the truth. She said, I am putting dirt in this jar from this lynching site as a memorial to the person who was killed here. And he stood for a moment and looked at her and said, may I help you? And she said, sure. You know, here's my shovel. He said, no, I will do it with my hands. And he started scooping up dirt and helping her. And she looked over and she could see tears streaming down his face. So she went and put her arm around him and said, "Please, may I comfort you?" And he said, "I am so afraid that my grandfather was the lyncher." Now, this is truth and reconciliation. So we don't have to be on opposite sides to come together. But the brave work of teaching our young people the truth and helping our teachers to be able to do it is what we are all about. So I leave you with this story. I will continue to do this work as much as I can. If I can ever support you in any way, don't hesitate to call me. Oh, I do recommend that you read Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy. If you haven't, I gather a movie's coming out. But I want to really thank you. I've always said to teachers, I think you are the people who do God's work on earth. You are part of that mighty, courageous, and brave group. Bravo. Bravi to all of you for what you do. And I feel so privileged to have had this moment of 4.5 years with you. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. Wow. Here. Hey, let's do. We didn't get this picture.
Hang on. Do we want a picture with the board? Emily, can we do a picture with the board?
Can we all go down?
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
hugging her.
Wait a minute.
Emily, you want the same
Oh,
formation as we typically take,
Okay.
or
We're gonna all go down
all
there.
go down?
Hey, you. No.
You're welcome.
Hi, how are you? I'm Elizabeth. Wonderful. Oh, nice to see you all. You don't have to do this, really.
Yeah, sure.
Good work.
Nice to see you. Yeah, very well. Thank you very much.
I know it's you.
All right. One, two, three. Perfect. All right, great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's the most important part of our morning.
Thank you. Oh, and hello. It's so wonderful.
Let me not let you out without it.
All right, before you leave, Elizabeth, I would like,
Actually, Jan has never been to one of these meetings.
Oh, wow.
And so we are staying until 11. But I hear it's a fast meeting, so who
Yes.
knows? And I do also want to say, to those people who are not directly a part of the staff, but who are here lobbying for educators, you are wonderful too. And I never fully appreciated that till I sat up there
Mhm.
and heard what you had to offer.
Well, I'm just going to sit back here and let you finish this meeting.
Shy and retiring as I am.
Yes. I will say it is a particular delight to have you back here. And, particularly fitting, I think, that, even when receiving the resolution of appreciation, you took the opportunity to teach the board and the people assembled here something new. The work that, we did over the last couple of years, culminating in, I think the first shot at new standards of quality for the Commonwealth that are aimed at equity are, in significant part, due to your focus, on equity as a goal for the Commonwealth. And, as you go through the work and occasionally you want to say to yourself, there's an easier path to where we're going. And, whenever that sort of angel or devil on the right shoulder kicks in and says there's an easier path, maybe there's another direction you should go, there's always that little angel with the West Texas accent on the left shoulder saying, nah, it's time we do this the right way. And so, I'm particularly appreciative of the support and really the contribution you made to where we ended up at the last meeting. We don't know yet what will happen with this draft or this prescribed SOQs, but we do know that we have set down a new marker that's been noticed. And if it doesn't happen this time, it'll happen next time. And if it doesn't happen next time, it'll happen the year after that. I'm confident that we have, as a group and with your participation, changed the course of how people are thinking about what it means to do equity in the Commonwealth. So thank you for that. I would also, at this time, Kim, if it's okay, I thought people knew, but I guess people do not know, everybody does not know that Ms. Atkins has, due to other commitments, submitted her letter of resignation from this board. And, when we started down the path of the SOQs, the first thing we did was we formed the Evidence-Based Policymaking Committee, which is a long way of saying, we formed a committee whose purpose was to make sure that what we were doing or what we would recommend was actually predicated on decent research and not just anecdotal. And, it had been my desire to have somebody lead that committee who I believed would, do the work diligently and do the work honestly and make sure that what we came up with was in fact reflective of the research. And, Kim graciously agreed to undertake the chairwomanship. I don't know. Am I allowed to use chairmanship anymore? I don't know what the right word is anymore, but it's the chair. It doesn't feel right to not have something on it, but the chair, I guess you agreed to chair it, the committee. And in fact, the work of the Evidence-Based Policy Committee was largely rolled into the prescribed standards of quality that now exist in the Commonwealth. And so, we will have an opportunity, I'm sure, to do the resolution of appreciation. This is not the time for that, but I do want to note that, with you and Elizabeth and the work got done very, very well. So thank you for that contribution to what we've been doing and for your, friendship and participation in the other matters the board has done. I don't want to suggest that's the only thing you've done in the last 2 years, but it's very, very important piece of where we've been. So thank you for that. Okay. We will move on now to Emily. Final review of the annual report. Now, Elizabeth, I do take it that you haven't told Jan that all of our meetings ended at 10:30 and you just decided to hang around here for a while those days that you were gone.
Good morning, President Gecker, Vice President Atkinson, members of the board, and Dr. Lane. I'm pleased to present for final review the board's 2019 annual report on the condition and needs of public schools in Virginia. As noted in the boilerplate, this report is required by Article 8, Section 5 of the Constitution of Virginia and 22.1-18 of the Code of Virginia. This section outlines the requirements of the report, including the current standards of quality, information on student and parent choice, including charter school and virtual school options, as well as a report on the reports that local school divisions are required to submit to the state and federal government. The annual report presents the needs of public education in Virginia, an update on the board's work over the past year on the standards of quality revisions, and a summary of achievement of schools and students. Since first review, there have been several updates to the report. On pages 4 and 5, an executive summary has been added. On pages 8 and 9, additional historical information has been added about the standards of quality and past board and General Assembly action. On page 13, the data on unfilled positions has been expanded to show a 10-year trend line. On pages 16 and 17, a section has been added about major board accomplishments and actions beyond the SOQ revisions. On page 22, more context has been added to the data on suspension and expulsions. Throughout the document, several technical updates have been made based on the feedback from board members, and all required reports in the appendices have been finalized. As we discussed during yesterday's work session, I did receive a comment from Ms. Holton about featuring the recent NAEP reading results more prominently in the report. I work with staff to include it in the summary of achievement section, but have given it its own heading similar to the suspension and expulsion data. I did pass around a draft version of this section last night at dinner, and I have some additional copies here if anyone that wasn't at dinner needs to review it. Additionally, at the request of Dr. Duran, anecdotal evidence on SIFE and SLIFE students will be added to the section on student demographics. Following the board's approval and any technical and editorial updates by department staff, the report will be submitted to the governor and General Assembly. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends that the board approve the 2019 annual report on the condition and needs of public schools.
Okay, thank you, Emily.
President Becker,
Dr. Wilson.
I want to thank you for this. Just for the public who may be watching or listening, could you define SLIFE and SIFE so that
Yes.
people know what we're talking about?
Students with limited
Students with
formal inter- I would
limited
say-
students with limited interrupted formal education is SLIFE.
Yeah.
Students with interrupted formal education is SIFE.
Yes.
The acronym SUIT.
Yes.
Yes, just want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah, and the reason we don't have specific information there now is because we don't collect that data, but I also think it may be relevant for us to talk about potentially collecting that data in the future so that we do have better evidence other than what we know anecdotally about the challenges that these students have.
Okay, are there any, Ms. Holton?
Thank you, Emily, and especially for last minute revisions. I just want to first clarify that this additional NAEP language is not in the copy that was posted.
Correct.
So
So-
the complete document we don't yet have. The complete document is what was posted in our board work plus this section.
Correct. There is a bullet on the NAEP scores that is under kind of the summary of achievements, which
Right.
is actually the first kind of paragraph that I have here in this draft. This will be added to page 23 after the suspension and expulsion data. And then once that version is finalized, we certainly send it to the Governor and General Assembly, and we also post it on the board's website with all of the other annual reports for the public to be able to see it.
So it will go in as a separate section after the suspension rates among demographic groups and
Correct.
before conclusion.
Correct.
Okay, great. So I just, I want to, if I may, my
Please.
second point, just want to thank you for your hard work on this and the board. And I just, I know sometimes you feel like we do all this and does anybody ever read it? And I can tell you that my students read it in my ed policy class because I use this material, and I know others do too. We, as a board, have the opportunity to use the conclusions that we've reached here and stated so clearly and with persuasive documentation due to your hard work to help the general public, and I hope that the advocacy groups here also use it and look to it. I am particularly impressed at the sharpness with which we have connected our standards of quality revisions to our goals around equity and teachers and improving the connection between our students' education needs and their futures, i.e. the work we've done on SOAs. So thank you for all that work. And I am grateful for the addition to you and to the board colleagues for the addition of the information highlighting the NAEP standards. I don't know that there's another point on our agenda to talk about that today, but as you know, the latest NAEP standard showed that on the key reading measures, we've seen a significant drop this year, and that it mirrors a drop we've been seeing in various ways in our own reading scores, our own SOL reading scores over the last few years. Most poignantly, our 8th grade reading percentiles are now at the national average or just tiny bit above the national average. And we have for many years prided ourselves for the fact that our blue line, our Virginia line, has been well above the national line on these charts. And so everybody wants to be above average, and we have been, and this suggests that we may no longer be, particularly in reading, and 8th grade being the as students are moving into high school, a crucial measure. So I think it's a call to redouble our efforts at supporting our teachers through resources, and therefore it emphasizes the importance of everything we're doing through the standards of quality, and also a call as we move into the teacher evaluation work that we're going to be doing soon as a board, to thinking about what really helps our teachers improve their practice in a constructive quality improvement kind of spirit. We do have our work to cut out for us, and this shows that all of the rest of what we're doing is not unconnected. I can't draw a direct line between our resource issues and our NAEP scores, but it sure is suggestive that the timing of some of the struggles on resources are now playing out in terms of actual impact on our students on this nation's report card.
And I will note that this is certainly one avenue that we're going to be communicating the board's revisions to the standards of quality. We are also sending a separate transmittal letter to the Governor and General Assembly. So there will be several opportunities for those policymakers to receive your revisions and make sure that we're communicating them appropriately.
Okay, any other comments? Are we ready to adopt this as the annual report? Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Holton, and thank you for your, honestly, for the work you put in on this to add to the product. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Atkins. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. And, we've talked about this before, but between this document and the comprehensive plan, these are two of the major, and now the SOQs, of course, but these are two of the major policy documents this board puts out. And, we ought to be using them to speak to those issues that we believe are important. And, I think you've done a great job, Emily, in laying out what this board believes is important. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, item H. Alternative accreditation plans from various jurisdictions. Who's doing H?
Michelle's coming.
Ah, there we go. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, President Gecker, Vice President Atkinson, members of the board, and Dr. Lane. Item H is the first review of request for renewal of alternative accreditation plans for Albemarle County Public Schools, the Town of Colonial Beach Public Schools, Craig County Public Schools, Highland County Public Schools, Scott County Public Schools, and York County Public Schools for high schools with a graduation cohort of 50 or fewer students. These are renewal applications. You may recall a couple years ago, they came before you, but we have since revised the standards of accreditation. And the GCI index is now 88, where it was 85. So these applications reflect changes based on the 2017 standards of accreditation. The plans are essentially the same as they were and have been, and they will only be used if needed and if the school's graduating class is 50 or fewer for that year when needed. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends that the board accept for first review the request for renewal of these alternative accreditation plans.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments, questions? Nobody? Okay, well, thank you very much. We're taking it as first review.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, item I.
Okay. Continue on. This is the first review of requests for renewal of alternative accreditation plans from Albemarle County Public Schools, Arlington County Public Schools, Chesterfield County Public Schools, and Fairfax County Public Schools. These are again renewal applications. They are also in response to the changes to the 2017 standards of accreditation. And these applications now reflect the measurements of school quality indicators as outlined by the standards of accreditation. Each application is based on each school's unique circumstances, and the calculations that they are proposing also address their unique circumstances and the special populations served in each of those schools. The chart on pages A and B reflect when the plans have been utilized over the past few years. And so you do see that some of these schools also fall under the provision of being accredited based on the Senate bill where they have the 3-year waiver. They were accredited for 3 prior years. And so they, based on their accreditation, alternative accreditation plan. And so therefore they were accredited for another 3 years based on that same thing. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends that the Board of Education accept for first review the request for renewal of alternative accreditation plans before you.
Are there any questions or comments? I'm getting there. Yeah. Okay, Ms. Holton.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I have one specific question that I mentioned to Dr. Lane, and to hear the answer next month when we're on final review is fine, unless you know it today. But and then I have a request for all of them. As to, the specific question is as to the Albemarle County Public Charter School, I think is the name of it. Albemarle Community Public Charter School. As to the rest in this item, I understand that most of these schools are serving students with special needs of one sort or another, and therefore I understand that the normal criteria for accreditation may not be appropriate. For that one, from what I can tell, that I'm not clear that that is the case for the Albemarle County Community Public Charter School. And so I'd like to understand a little bit more about why that school is appropriate for alternative accreditation. If they're serving a regular cross-section of students, but in a different way, I don't know why they can't meet the regular accreditation standards, and was not clear on that from their documentation. And I'll just go ahead and state my general question, my question applicable to all of them as well. And again, this can be next month or this month. Today, I understand the superintendent is recommending that we receive these for first review. I would love to hear next month the superintendent's recommendation as to the merits of these proposals. And particularly in light of the fact that we have now amended the SOAs to give better acknowledgement for individual student growth and school progress. Should we take a new look at these? In other words, under our old standards, there wasn't as much room. The old standards, I understood why schools focused on especially challenged students might need a different set of criteria, but especially challenged students can make progress, can make growth, can show growth, and especially challenged students schools can show progress. So is it as clear now as it was before that these schools need separate accommodation? And so I don't need the answers to either of those today unless you have them handy, but would like to before we make a final vote.
As it relates to the first question about Albemarle, I obviously with dinner ending late last night and starting first time this morning, I've only done cursory research on that school. Before I opine, I want to go back and read the board's original decision because it does appear to be an innovative model, but that was an innovative model in the context of the old standards accreditation. So I want to read the board's decision. The as it relates to the merit of each of the others, I'll certainly be prepared to do that next month. I will say, having had experience with a couple of these schools as superintendent, I will say that when you think about the way that we measure graduation rate and dropout rate and some of the new indicators, chronic absenteeism, I think these schools provide unique settings that might not be covered in the current standards of accreditation, especially as it relates to students that may never have graduated in 4 years, that they may graduate in 5 or 6. And I just think that there are special circumstances here, but I would not want to go through each one right now without delving a little bit more into the board's original intent.
Anybody else? Nope. Thank you very much. We take that on first review. We'll see
All
you,
right.
I guess not next month, but beginning of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us down to discussion of current issues. Are there any items? Did I skip something? You looked at me like in shock, Jamil. Okay. Yeah, you don't know what to do with the rest of your day, you can. Okay. Discussion of current issues. Anybody have anything they want to talk about today?
I'll follow your comments.
No, you may go ahead. You can lead this time. I did it at dinner. You can do this one now.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the pleasure of hosting Superintendent Lane and Mr. Gecker at Highland View Elementary School last week. And on behalf of the faculty and staff, Dr. Parrish and our superintendent and school board members, thank you for coming to our location and seeing firsthand the wonderful students we have in the building and the resilient, wonderful professionals who are the teachers there, and we were honored with your visit. Along with the teachers, we had some delegates. We had Delegate Israel O'Quinn, Senator Carrico, Senator-elect Dr. Pillion in attendance as well, and they were there to support the school and the division and to help everyone to understand the full grasp of what Southwest Virginia needs. From Highland View, we took off and we went to Russell County School, to Lebanon Middle School, where we met Superintendent Brown and Principal Nathan Breeding. And they took us on a tour of the middle school to see some of the fantastic things going on in their school. One of the exciting things that I saw was an incentive room that Mr. Breeding created in order to drop chronic absenteeism. I think he said less than 7%. And that was a moment for me to take back to our school or our division and share that with our middle school leaders. So from that really neat incentive room, we went to, we actually saw a math classroom, and Miss Teresa Turner was leading an 8th grade math lesson, and it was a project-based learning. Her classroom was special with alternative seating. They were using Chromebooks and Rocket Books, and she gave each of us a packet to take home and to sample. It was a very nice visit to Lebanon Middle School, my alma mater, I would have to add, and I'm very proud to be a Lebanon High School graduate of something. I won't go there. From Russell County, we went to Ridgeview High School, the combined high school and middle school, and met Superintendent Robinson and Principal Compton and witnessed some of the great things going on in that location on top of a mountain. It was incredible. The facility was amazing. The grounds were amazing. The students and the pride that the students just beamed with pride for their school, their programs, and all the things that they were accomplishing. And in the CT&E programs with the combined middle school, high school, we were holding our breath, but they seemed to handle things in a very positive way, and very moved by that visit. From Dickinson County, we went across the mountain to Buchanan County to Riverview, a combined elementary middle school. And we met Superintendent Hibbets there, who was welcoming, and Principal Hess, who formed a receiving line for us as we walked in the door. Each and every one of those students, I think they were in 7th and 8th grades, met us, extended their hands, looked us eye to eye as if they were presenting CEOs to business leaders around the world, and addressed each of us with personalized comments. And I was ever appreciative of the effort that Principal Hess and the teachers went to prepare the children for our visit. It was very touching, because we know it does take time to practice those things. And in the background was a group of first graders who were thrilled to be able to sing a song complete with hand movements for our honor, and that was very touching as well. And the gentleman and we were just blown away by a brick structure that had been sandblasted with the history of Buchanan County on the wall. And we had an 8th grade student named Austin Blankenship that went through the entire history of Buchanan County with us and described each and every part of that mural to us. And it was very touching. That school had a lot of wonderful things to share with us. And before we left, they treated us to some cupcakes, candies, and punch. And the engineering students gave us a wonderful Yeti-like cup with the engraving of the Board of Ed on it with our names personalized, and a candy dish that they created in their engineering department through CT&E. And from there, we traveled to Wytheville to meet with the Region 7 superintendents. Had a great time hearing them and their concerns, and some of the important comments that they made that resonated throughout all of Region number 7. So I was very honored to speak with all of these superintendents and principals and see their teachers in action. So thank you, gentlemen, for including me, and I'm very honored to represent the board.
I just wanted to thank you both for taking the time to visit schools with us. In addition to the schools that Pam mentioned, we also were able to visit Giles County the next day. And I don't know that this has ever occurred, but the board president sat through the state superintendent's leadership council meeting. And so that was really helpful. But there was a picture on the wall at Giles as we drove through, hundreds of towns and saw, what the remnants of the closed coal fields and so many things. One thing that struck me as I was visiting the schools is I was trying to learn a little bit about why performance is so strong in what we call Region 7. And if you're not familiar, Region 7 actually in aggregate outperforms every other region in the state. And congratulations on that. But on the wall in Giles, after just seeing incredible instruction going on and just absolutely dedicated teachers, and you can tell in many of the Region 7 communities that they don't have quite some of the turnover issues of other areas, because teachers really are the hub of the community. It said on the wall, and it's a beautiful mural, I'll show the picture later, but welcome to a place where hundreds live the way millions wish they could. And that just really struck me. So anyways, I absolutely loved it. Many of you may not be aware, I'm from that area, but on the Kentucky side. And so in a way it was going back home for me, and just absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Dr. Duran.
On Monday, November 4th, Dr. Mann, Ms. Holton, and I held a public hearing in Northern Virginia on the proposed 2020 Health Education Standards of Learning. We had 6 speakers that evening. They represented Arlington, Prince William, Loudoun, and Fairfax County. There were teachers, there were central office staff, as well as community members. By and large, they spoke to us about 3 common themes that evening in relation to the standards. The first one was the concern around making sure that we addressed vaping and how we were addressing vaping in a very, they felt that there was a need to be a little more specific and direct around that, and more resources available in the health education standards. Second, they talked about the challenges and the inconsistencies they saw in how health education is taught in elementary school specifically, whether it's taught by a general ed elementary teacher or a physical education teacher, and more guidance on how that can be done, and consistency across the concern around not only in Northern Virginia, but they felt hearing from their colleagues across the state that perhaps we needed to provide more guidance and support in how it is done and who is actually delivering the instruction. And then the third one, which was very strongly shared with all of the 6 speakers, was the class size and student teacher ratio of PE teachers. And they're wondering about what we could do. And Ms. Holton and I certainly listened and afterwards spoke to them about, how that the staffing ratio and under Chapter 13.2 staffing requirements isn't exactly in the health ed standards of learning, but it is something that they definitely thought we should bring back to the school board to share, that in some cases class sizes for PE teachers are 30 up to 75. One person said 75 students. And they're concerned about if the new health ed standards for learning are to be taught in the way that they were very excited about. By the way, all 6 speakers spoke very positively about the standards and were really appreciative of that. Their concern more was around implementation. I don't know if Ms. Holton wants to add anything more.
Atkinson.
Well, I had the honor of traveling to Virginia Beach for the public hearing for the health standards down there, and I had 21 people in the room. 5 people signed up, but with encouragement, 5 additional people came and spoke, and so there were some similar themes, and I want to just cover a couple of them. One of them was that within 9 weeks, health and PE only meets 4 to 5 times, and so that's from their perspective, that's not enough time to really deal with the content that we put together in those standards. Also, another concern was there's no requirement for 8th grade PE, and so that for 8th graders going into 9th grade, they've really, that continuity, it's an elective in 8th grade, and so that continuity of the standards is missed, is another comment. One of the others was also class size, and I actually heard one person indicate that they had up to 90 students in a class, and I was just making sure that that's in fact what they said to me. The other concern that was expressed was that not only how many people are in a class, but their class load overall. It's much higher than it would be for the other content areas. And then I think one of the other interesting comments that I got was actually from someone that teaches at the college level and does teaching of students, teachers. And the comment was that there was concern in the health and PE certification side, that there's only 2 classes, and whether those classes are sufficient enough to cover the depth of the kind of standards that we've just put in place. And so I thought those were interesting comments to bring back to the board.
Anybody else? Ms. Atkinson.
Earlier this week, there was an article in the Martinsville Bulletin. It was reporting on the Martinsville City Schools board meeting. And the superintendent reported that Martinsville City Schools will become only the 3rd school system in the state to employ a shotgun detection system. That's a grant that's awarded from the Department of Education. And it may have been discussed last month, and I wasn't here, unfortunately, but I just didn't know the background from that. And I thought if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
I don't know that I can share the background on the detection system, but we give grants in aggregate of $6 million. It's actually going up to $12 million after General Assembly action to school divisions to implement school safety and security systems. And those grants range from as low as $30 to they were capped at one point, I think at $100,000. Now the new cap is $250,000. And our hope is to try to give grants to as many school divisions as possible to increase school safety. In almost every case, it usually is some type of capital project like you're describing. Many school divisions will use that funding to build, new internal barriers to ensure that pathways go into the office. They'll sometimes be used for new door locking systems. Sometimes they'll be used for metal detection. And as new technology becomes available, like shotgun detection, certainly with our grants, we try to do pilots and innovation with our school divisions.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Ms. Holton?
Thank you. I wanted to take a moment, and maybe we did this and I missed it, but if we did, we'll do it again, if with your permission, to recognize Pam Davis-Fott, who was nationally recognized recently as the Educator of the Year from Share Our Strength, the national organization that works to end childhood hunger. And Pam was recognized particularly for her work on Breakfast After the Bell, the Breakfast After the Bell program, and other ways to ensure that children are not hungry for food when they're hopefully hungry for learning. And Pam, your extraordinary work on that absolutely deserved national recognition, and I wanted to make sure that we recognized it here. And then second, I wanted to just say, at our seats today, and I'm not sure where this came from, but we have an invitation to an event celebrating the Achievable Dream Academies, and I wanted to make sure and that to draw that to everybody's attention. This is an organization, for those of you who may not know, that is doing innovative work in some of our neediest schools, now in 3 communities across the Commonwealth, started in Newport News, expanded to Virginia Beach, and now in Henrico County. Secretary Lane, our Secretary of Finance, and his wife Peggy have been really founders and major supporters of this organization. And I think it's just an example of some of the innovative work our system here in Virginia allows public schools to do. This is the kind of work that in many other states might come in under a charter school moniker, but in Virginia, we can do this kind of innovation within our traditional public schools, and it is particularly focused on some of our neediest kids. When Pam talked about the students shaking hands and doing a receiving line. When I visited an Achievable Dream School in Newport News many years ago, it is part of their daily routine to do a receiving line for all their students as they walk in the door. They greet the students, greet the administrators, and absolutely a firm handshake and an eye contact is part of what they're teaching. And we know so many of our schools in so many ways are teaching those crucial social emotional skills, not just content knowledge, and they are part of what's going to help our kids be successful. But I wanted to take this moment to draw the attention to this innovative work going on in partnership with 3 different of our school divisions.
James?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I read the Martinsville grant, and just it actually is not a shotgun detection, it's a gunshot detection system. And the idea is that
if there's an active shooter.
The idea is that it will look at waves and infrared sensors throughout the building to detect when a shot has been fired,
And from where?
and then it allows the police to respond faster.
Thank you for that clarification. Sorry.
Okay, we are almost done, believe it or not. I do have just a couple quick comments. First, about the trip to Southwest, which, Pam, thank you so much for opening the school to us. You may have already mentioned that in addition to the legislators who were there, it was most important, I think, to James and myself to have the teachers there and to listen to the teachers talk about the challenges and, frankly, the joy of teaching in, Southwest Virginia. Turnover in that school appears to be low. I was talking to some of the teachers and they said, why would we ever leave? This is our family. And, clearly a reflection not only of the local pride, but also of the leadership you've shown in that school. So, from all of the schools we went to in Southwest, I think even as I like to say, the non-educators among us like me, you can really see how clearly well taught those children are. There was not a school we went to where the discipline, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but the way the school ran was clearly the way you would want an educational institution to run, that was uniform throughout the trip. And the pride that they had in being able to do what they were doing, as James said, very accomplished academically without the resources that people have grown used to in other, wealthier portions of the state. And really, as you know, James and I spent 14 hours in the car driving together. And out of the 48 hours we were gone from Richmond, 14 of them were driving together. And a lot of that was driving through old abandoned coal towns, closed down stores. You know that those are not wealthy areas, and yet they're doing what they ought to be doing. So if you want to get some pride in the system, you can really go down to Southwest and be very proud of what people are doing. It also points out, though, to me, and some of the things we've talked about before, is as we make pronouncements from here, how do they get translated into, how does the policy translate to practice? And I think as we move forward in the coming year, and this board moves forward in years beyond, we need to constantly be mindful of the regional variations, as well as the difficulty overall in taking what is an incredibly large system and converting what we think ought to happen into practice on the ground. I think we do that reasonably well right now. But if you listen to the feedback of the superintendents at the State Superintendents Leadership Council, you realize there might be some room for improvement now and again. Not that they weren't a very polite and nice group, but they certainly had their opinions about things. I'll leave it at that. And I know why the board president doesn't get invited much to those meetings. This is, for us, the last meeting of the year. And, from my perspective, this has been a really good year for this board. And we finished a major project, which I think is great. As I said before, I think the impact of that major project has not yet been felt. But as we move through, in particular, the next legislative session, we'll begin to see what the groundwork we laid will produce. And I think that's, pretty exciting. I am particularly proud of the fact that this board is an active board. This has not been one to just sort of come to meetings, relatively unprepared, vote on stuff, and, leave. This has been a board that has taken the time to, I think, do things well. And, I did not know what to expect 4 years ago when I joined this group, but I could not be happier with really what I found here, which is just a bunch of folks who want to do good things for kids. And I know that sounds overly simplistic, but really at the heart of it, that's what we're doing. Part of that means we have to cater to or, work on all the aspects that go into the end product. But the overall mission, it seems to me, has stayed pretty clear, which is we want the best outcome for the children of the Commonwealth. And, every member of this board, including the former member who is here with us today, have really moved that mission forward. We sort of took this month off from doing a lot of heavy work. However, I urge all of you to go back and review the comprehensive work plan, because come January, it is my plan to start up again with the third topic on the work plan, which is the accreditation piece. And that's not redoing the standards, but it is a review of what impact has the standards of accreditation, what impact has the system had on our schools. We've noted certain things, and, there have been some positive academic outcomes, but there have also been some societal negatives. Increased segregation is one of them. And I don't know exactly what form that work will take yet, but that is, I think, the next topic this board is going to undertake, and consistent again with, what we've told the public we're going to do, and what we have agreed to do in that 5-year work plan. So rest up, have wonderful holidays, have a wonderful new year, and, look forward to seeing all of you in January, ready to do this again. So thank you very much. With that, we are, believe it or not, Elizabeth, earlier than 11, we are adjourned.
This is miraculous. Congratulations. And I loved everything you shared.
Come back more often. You're a
Yeah.
lucky charm.
An inspiration.